Hi, welcome to the latest talk in the Irish Ancestors series. Today I'm going to be talking about IrishGenealogy.ie, but I'm going to be talking about some pretty advanced and nerdy aspects of it. So this is not a beginner's talk. This is if you don't know what IrishGenealogy.ie is, go away and look at it, and then come back to this talk. IrishGenealogy.ie is the greatest thing that happened to Irish family history research, bar none. Okay, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I bow down. I am second to none in my adoration of it. Let me go. I'm going to do this as a formal PowerPoint talk, because there's a lot of detail in it, and it's hard to keep it straight in my doddery old head at this point. So I like to have crutches to lean on. So let's go through the PowerPoint and share that now. Right, Irish genealogy quirks. This is the Irish Genealogy homepage. And one of the things, IrishGenealogy.ie, remember? One of the things to keep in mind now is they've just added another year to the births, marriage, and deaths record. So they now come up to 1922 for births, 1947 for deaths, for marriages rather, and 1972 for deaths, with that little gap at the very beginning of deaths as well. One thing to keep in mind is that the partition of Ireland happened in 1921. So there will be no records. The 1922 records include records only from the 26 counties in what was then the Free State and is now the Republic of Ireland. So keep that in mind. This talk started out with me trying to work out why exactly I wasn't finding what I should be finding on Irish genealogy, and that's what the rabbit hole is doing there. That's what I just went straight down it into all these bits and pieces. But I think I finally worked out what is going on. Most of what I'm going to talk about is what happens when you use two surnames, and that you can only do that on the more search options. If you look down here, you can see more search options circled. So let's go to that, and I'll have a look. Okay, I'm searching a birth record, so I've ticked birth here in the event. Last name Walsh, the year from 1864 to 1898. Those years are significant. I'll say why in a minute. And the mother's surname Kelly. Okay, let's see what happens. Get 10 results. Walsh and Kelly are two of the most common names in Ireland. So there should be a lot more than this. Why aren't there? We'll have a talk about that in a second. One of the things I want to keep an eye on as I'm talking about this is what appears in the address bar, the URL. So it's https civilrecords.irishgenealogy, etc., etc., etc. Name 1 equals Walsh and keyword B equals Kelly. The most important thing to remember about using two surnames is that name 1 is the name in the top box, it's the main name, and keyword B is the second surname, so it's keyword birth. And they're treated differently by the site. So let's go back and try a different period. So Walsh and Kelly from 1899 to 1908, and you get 99 results. So obviously it's not finding about 95 to 98% of the pre-1898 records. The reason for that is that the site does not include all mothers' maiden names before 1899. After 1899, it does. Okay, these are birth records we're talking about. So the mother's maiden name is there from 1899. There is a very small number before 89. I was surprised. This is something when I was doing this and looking at the examples, I was surprised that there actually were 10 records a Walsh with a Kelly mother before 1899. There is a very small number that include the mothers and the maiden name beforehand. But the point about it is you're almost certain not to find anything if you put the mother's maiden name in before 1899. Okay, and that's not made 100% clear on the site, so keep that in mind. There'll be a summary of all of this towards the end of the talk. All right, let's look at Kelly alone between 1899 and 1908. That's 10 years. Okay. Why am I doing that? Because I want to show you one of the most confusing features of this advanced search. You have 24,098 records. Just keep that in mind for a second. But you have Anne Fletcher, you have James Geraghty, you have John. We searched for Kelly births. What are these things doing here? And if you look here, it's the mother's name. Maiden name is Kelly. So what happens for births in the more search options area, the advanced search options, all personal names are searched. So the mother's maiden name, the forename, the child's forename, the father's forename, they're all searched. So it's a real bucket shop search. Let me just demonstrate. There is a little box on the advanced search thing for exact matches only. All right, you circle that, you do the search again, and you get, it's reduced by about 3,000, but you're still getting Fletcher, Geraghty, Flood, Lacey, mother's maiden name Kelly. So what's going on there? What's going on is that exact match means it doesn't use surname variance. It doesn't mean just give me results that only have the child's surname in it. Okay. The surname variance is I'll say a word about that in a second. But for example, what those 3,000 difference of records, that would be O'Kelly, that would be Kelly, Kelley, Kellie, Kely. Anything like that is excluded. You're only getting exactly the spelling of Kelly, but it is searching for all the fields, forenames, mother's maiden name, father's forename, and so on. Okay, the surname variance table. I know this quite well because I licensed the surname variance table to Irish Genealogy in 2014, which means that I've had 10 years to add to it, and I know where some of the bodies are buried, as it were. So there are peculiarities about it. For example, one of the things, Lachlan is a variant of MacLachlan and O'Loughlin. So if you search for Lachlan, you'll find McLaughlin and O'Loughlin. But McLaughlin and O'Loughlin are not variants of each other. Okay? So that, I think I was trying to be a little bit too precise doing this, but that's the way it is. So you need to keep an eye. No surname variant system is perfect. Family search is pretty good. Ancestry stinks, and Find My Past stinks, and ours is the best in the world. Anyway, there are also other flaws about the way they treat the surname variants, particularly after 1899. The transcription of the records began in the 1980s, when computer systems were pretty primitive. And the notion of an apostrophe would make a mainframe computer just faint dead. So what they did was they took out all the apostrophes from the O'Loughlin. And they added spaces in to an awful lot of the Mac, where it was Mac apostrophe. They'd made Mac space Kenna. What Irish Genealogy have done is they've taken the most common Mac and O surnames and put in variants. So Mac space Kenna will find McKenna, because there are loads and loads of McKennas. Quirk is a much rarer surname. So Mac space Quirk will not find Quirk. Okay, so I don't know which ones exactly. I would imagine that they just looked at the most common surnames and put it in for those. So O'Connor, the same thing with the O's. O space Connor will find O apostrophe Connor, Connor without the O, Connor with one N, and so on. So it's a full surname variant. But the surname O'Fee will not find Fee and will not find O apostrophe Fee. This really applies almost entirely for records after 1899. But my approach at this point is any surname that could have a Mac or an O variant, search on all three of them, with the space, without the space, without the Mac, and without the O or the O. Okay, that's as simple as that. You need to cover all bases. That's one of the reasons I wasn't finding things. Okay. In the spirit of putting my finger into the socket and see what happens, why not search 1899 to 1908 with only the mother's surname in there? So name 1, that's the main surname up at the top, is blank, and the keyword B, the birth keyword, is Kelly, and see what happens. Fine, there you have Kelly is the mother's maiden name. Kelly would be the first name. But what the heck is this James Bleeding Tully here in 1907? If you go in and look at it, there's no image available. There's a full transcript. There's no sign of a Kelly anywhere in it. I'm not sure what's happening here. I think this might be a late registration. That basically that the system is having a slight nervous breakdown and throwing up anomalies. Okay. Also in the same, let's find a different socket to put our fingers in. This is the most recent one, 1922 to 1922. Mother surname Kelly. And okay, fair enough. We have O'Neill, Cook, Wall, Smith with the mother's surname Kelly. Very good. But if you click on, for example, Anna O'Neill, you get this. There is no image to display. This may be because the record was registered or amended in a later year, or there are quality issues with the original image. Now, I think nearly all of these are late registrations. 1921, 1922 were times when public administration on the island of Ireland was basically in chaos. There were two systems. There was the British system and the Republican system. And lots of people just didn't register their births. And when they came to need a birth cert 15, 20 years later, they registered their birth then, and it was written back into the year, and it was done in non-standard ways. And that's what this is about. It's happening particularly 1920, 1921, 1922. This is the revolutionary period, as we call it in Ireland. So be careful about any births that you're looking for around those times. One thing that I'm not clear about is how this, if there's no image to display and there is no full transcript, where did the mother's birth surname come from? I think this may be part of the GROs making things easy for themselves in the 1970s and 80s when they were searching for these births. They went in and extracted the mother's birth surnames and added them to their own internal indexes, and those have now found their way online. But they're there anyway. So as I say, after 1899, mother's maiden surname, even for late registrations. Okay, let me talk about how the variants work in the more search options area. So this is name 1 equals Welsh, and keyword B equals Mahon, Mahon, Welsh. So, and the result is Welsh finds Walsh with an E, Walsh without an E, Welsh CH. It finds all the variants of Welsh. Excellent. Marrying Mahon. Reverse them or change it, and let's go to Welsh and Mahan. Okay, there is a variant. It's a rare variant, but it's there. I've checked in Irish genealogy, and it finds no results for this birth, even though we've just seen there are lots and lots of Mahon mothers with Welsh parents. So that's key name. Name 1 equals Welsh. Keyword equals Mahon. No surname variants are applied to the keyword. Okay, so the mother's surname is not searched for variants. On the other hand, the mother's surname, the keyword, does take wildcards. So if you put in an asterisk before the H and an asterisk instead of the AHAN, H asterisk N, it finds Mahan, Mahin, Mohan, Mahan. Okay, so wildcards work, but variants don't in those secondary surnames. Okay, let's move on to marriages. Marriages are probably more important than births in this case because, first of all, there are two families involved, and you've got two lines to follow, and secondly, because they start in 1845. So what I'm saying applies to a much broader range of years than for the births. So I've searched for a Lachlan, that's the main name, marrying a Walsh, and you see the results. You get Patrick Walsh marrying Mary McLaughlin with an Lachlan with an O, McLaughlin with an A. You'll get Lachlan, you'll get Lochin, Loghlen. Any variants. It searches for variants and finds Walsh. You will notice that all the second name is Walsh. There's no Welsh, there's no Walsh with an E. So it's not searching for variants on the second party in a marriage. So just to demonstrate that, Lachlan, and then Walsh with an E, you find only 3, whereas before there were 41. So it's not searching for variance in the second box in the mother's maiden name box. On the other hand, again, if you search for Walsh with an E in the main name and Lachlan in the second name, it will find only records with Lachlan, not MacLachlan, not O'Loughlin, but it will find all the variants of Walsh. And it will find all records where Lachlan is a forename. So Lachlan Nolan turns up in 1910, marrying Minnie Walsh. So again, this is just to demonstrate that what happens is for both of these names, the main name and the secondary name, Irish Genealogy searches all of the name fields in the records. So the forenames of both parties marrying and the surnames of both parties marrying, but it only applies variance to the main name, the name that you put in the top, name 1. Okay. But yet again, in the secondary name, wildcards work. So wildcards work, and wildcards will also work in the top box. So wildcards work at all times in all places with surnames. Okay, just briefly at the end, I want to say a thing or two about the death records. And this is not a quirk. This is a wonderful feature, but it's not genealogical. The more search options includes the ability to specify a particular date for birth, marriage, which is not particularly useful. And for any of them, I mean, if you know that, you probably don't need to use this site. But for deaths, one of the things that the indexes record is the age at death. So in this case, I've just filled out 1940 to 1944. The registration district is Tuam, and the age at death is 2. Tuam, I don't know if you're aware, if you're in Ireland, you certainly are, that this is where the mother and baby home scandal basically began, where they discovered an unmarked graveyard where basically babies' bodies had been disposed of rather than buried properly. And here they are. Okay, we've searched 1940 to 1944. This is one of the pages that comes back. Children aged 2 at death. Oh, the qualification, being a rabbit, present at death, children's home, Tuam. All dead. 3, 1.5, 7, 2 1/4, 1 3/4. This is social history. This is political even. And there is this man, Daniel Loftus, who's an undergraduate in University College Cork, has started a project called projectinfant.ie to name all the children in these homes using the IrishGenealogy.ie. So name the children who died in the homes. It's a wonderful project. Anyway, there are a couple of other small oddities that are worth keeping in mind about this is about both the more search options and the simple search. There are registration districts that appear that don't exist. Okay, Westmeath is not a registration district; it's a county. These are almost all they are all late registrations. So where somebody has filled out the form non-standard, they're not filling out the normal form. So odd things creep in, the names of counties, the names of towns that aren't registration districts and so on. So you need to be aware of that. And after 1914, the transcription process, I think they've been experimenting. Optical character recognition. For example, this is 1919, where we have the Takivrin Mayon, born on the 8th of June 1919, mother's maiden name McLaughlin. Okay, if you look at what this is, there's Catherine Mahoney, and you can see there is a similarity between the shape of the letters and what turns up, and the mother's maiden name is McLaughlin. Okay, so I think they're experimenting with different kinds of. I think the upshot is they're a bit less accurate, the transcriptions, once you get past 1914. Okay, let me summarize this. There's been a lot of all the more options search for a main name name 1 in the URL in the address bar, or secondary name, keyword, keyword B, or keyword M. They cover all the personal name fields in a record. So forenames, mother's maiden names, spouse's names, and there's no way of turning that off in more search options. All more search option searches for a main name use surname variance. You can turn that off by ticking the exact match box in more search options. In more search options, the secondary names, so the spouse's name or the mother's maiden name, never use surname variance. All the names in that search page can take wildcards. Using only a secondary name throws up anomalies, so late registrations, double transcripts, and this technical term, weirdo mutant records from outer space. Late registrations sometimes use non-existent registration districts, so beware of that, and more recent transcripts can be dodgy. The home page, the simple search, where you don't have the option to enter a second surname, the searches are confined to the forename, for the forename, whatever you put in the forename box, and the surname, whatever you put in the surname box, and they use surname variants, and you can use wildcards, but they don't search every field in the record. So things you can't do in more search options are done by default on the simple search, so that it's worth keeping that in mind. The site is, for all this, it would be good if all of this was detailed somewhere on the site. I'm available. Let me put my hand up. The site is still wonderful. I think it's still the best thing since sliced bread. And I am a big fan, especially of the death records. Okay, I hope I haven't broken your brains. Thank you for watching and happy hunting.